You know, it's funny. A blueberry. So simple, right? You just pop them in your mouth. But if you ever actually thought about the incredible journey that little berry took to get to you, it's this amazing story of, well, natural engineering. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it all works, piece by piece. So, yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? How does this little woody stick, turn into a whole handful of juicy blueberries? That's what we're here to figure out. We're going to go on a little journey, starting deep underground with the roots and work our way all the way up to that perfect, ripe berry. It's going to be fascinating.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the secret life of the plant, its whole yearly cycle. Then we'll get our hands dirty, figuratively, with the roots. After that, we'll move up to the stems and leaves, check out the absolutely beautiful flowers, and finally, the grand finale, the berry itself. We're literally building our understanding of this plant from the ground up.
All right, let's dive into section 1. You gotta understand, a blueberry bush isn't just sitting there. Its entire life is this incredible secret dance that it does with the seasons. It's constantly changing, constantly adapting.
So when autumn rolls around and the days get shorter and colder, the plant doesn't just give up. Nope, it basically goes to sleep. It enters this state called dormancy, which is its brilliant survival trick for the winter. And get this, it's not just a passive rest. The plant is literally counting the number of cold hours it experiences. It needs a certain amount of chill time before it'll even think about waking up for spring. Pretty smart, huh?
Okay, so while the top part of the plant is taking a long winter's nap, there's a whole world of activity happening just below the surface. Let's head underground and look at the roots, the hidden foundation that honestly makes everything else possible.
Now this is where things get really interesting. You'd think a plant would have these deep, strong roots, right? Not the blueberry. Its root system is super shallow, and it doesn't have a lot of those tiny little root hairs that are so good at grabbing nutrients. That's exactly why you always hear about putting mulch around them. It's not just a nice to have, it's absolutely critical for giving those delicate roots the air and moisture they need to survive.
And these roots, they don't just grow at a steady pace. They have two major growth spurts during the year. It's kind of like they have two big meal times. The first is a snack, really, in the spring and summer, just enough to power the berries that are growing. But the main event, the big feast, happens after the harvest in the fall. That's when the roots go into overdrive, storing up as much energy as they can to get through the winter and fuel the explosion of growth for next year. And check this out. Some of the finest, most delicate of these roots can live for 155 days. That is over 5 months. So while we're just seeing a quiet bush up top, there's this constant, relentless, invisible cycle of work happening underground. Old roots dying off, new ones growing, all of it quietly building the powerhouse for the plant above.
Okay, we've spent enough time in the dark. Let's come up out of the soil and into the sunlight. We're moving on to the stems and the leaves. This is the visible architecture of the plant. This is the factory where the real magic of photosynthesis happens.
So a healthy blueberry bush is never really done growing. It's in this constant state of renewal. Every single year, it pushes up somewhere between 15 and 18 new stems. We call them canes, right from the base. And this isn't just happening by accident. It's a deliberate strategy to keep the plant young and vigorous, always building the new wood that's going to produce fruit in the future.
And you know, not all blueberry bushes look the same. They've got different personalities, you could say. Most have what we call an upright habit. They grow straight up, reaching for the sun. But then you've got other types that have a spreading habit, where they grow more outwards, almost horizontally. This basic shape, this architecture, really changes how you take care of the plant, from pruning to picking. And of course, what's a factory without its power source? Let's talk about the leaves, the plant's solar panels. They're pretty straightforward, really. They've got this classic ovalish, pointy shape. They pop up one after the other along the stem, and they're about 5 centimeters long. And yep, just like a maple tree, they do their job all summer and then drop off in the fall. Job done.
All right, now we get to my favorite part, the really beautiful stage, the promise of the bloom. Everything we've talked about so far, the roots, the canes, the leaves, it's all been leading up to this moment. This is when the plant starts to show us what it's really here to do, make fruit. And here's the thing that just blows my mind. The blueberry plant is an amazing planner. It doesn't just wake up in the spring and think, I should probably make some flowers today. No way. It actually forms the flower buds for next year during the fall.
It's always thinking one whole season ahead, preparing for the future on the new wood it grew over the summer.
So here's a 50-cent word for you, but it's pretty cool. Basipetal. That just describes the super organized way the plant develops its flowers. It starts at the very tip of a branch and works its way backward, down towards the base. It's a very methodical, top-down strategy. No chaos here.
And these flowers, they don't just appear one by one. They show up in this gorgeous little cluster called a raceme. The best way to picture it is like a tiny, delicate chandelier. You have one central stalk and all the individual flowers hang off it. It's beautiful, and that whole structure is what's going to become a cluster of blueberries.
The flower itself is a little work of art. It's shaped like a little upside-down bell, and it's a marvel of efficiency too. It's hermaphroditic, which means it has both the male and female parts right there in one flower. Super convenient. And remember those buds from the fall? Each one of those can pack in 5 to 10 of these little flowers. The potential is just incredible.
And that brings us to the grand finale, the final transformation from bud to berry. This is where all that planning, all that underground work, all that growth pays off. Let's look at a few quick numbers that really tell the story of this final, amazing step.
First up, potential. Just one of those little buds that the plant so cleverly made last fall can hold anywhere from 8 to 16 flowers. That is just staggering. A whole cluster of blueberries, all pre-packaged and ready to go.
Okay, next number. Once a bee does its job and a flower is pollinated, the race is on. It only takes about 65 to 75 days to go from that flower to a ripe blueberry you can pick. That's just over 2 months. It's a super fast final sprint to the finish line.
But that final sprint is only part of the story. The initial phase, what's called fruit set, is much more of a marathon. This is the critical period, lasting anywhere from 1 to 3 months, where the pollinated flower makes the big commitment and starts slowly transforming into a tiny green berry. It's laying all the groundwork for that final, fast ripening. So there you have it. From a seemingly lifeless stick in the middle of winter, through the hidden, tireless work of its roots, up through the new canes that reach for the sun, and into those incredibly well-planned flower buds, a blueberry is finally born. So the next time you're enjoying a handful, maybe you'll see it a little differently. Will you see all that incredible invisible engineering that went into making that one perfect, sweet little bite?
This is the brief on the blueberry plant's annual cycle. We're going to dive into the complete year-long journey of a blueberry shrub. And what's wild is how it starts preparing for next year's successful harvest before the current season is even done. Okay, first up, this whole cycle is really built around smart, long-term prep for its winter dormancy. While it's dormant, the plant absolutely needs what we call chilling hours, that specific amount of cold that lets it wake up properly. But get this, the planting starts way earlier. Right after harvest, it begins basipetal initiation, which is just the process of setting the flower buds that will become next year's crop. Second, as we head into spring, you see this 2-part growth spurt. Now, flowering, that only happens on wood that's pretty young, about 4 to 6 months old. And this burst of activity happens right alongside the plant's first, and kind of weaker, peak of root growth, setting the stage for summer. And finally, let's look at that crucial fruit development phase. The period when the tiny green fruit successfully gets established is called nuaison, and it can last for up to 3 months. The actual harvest then takes place with amazing precision, just 65 to 75 days after flowering, right as the summer canes are actively growing. So from those critical chilling hours all the way to fruit set, a blueberry success is just this incredible year-long performance of perfect biological timing.